Hello and welcome, Pauleh here, and today I begin my series on Return of Reckoning, War Never Ends, or to be more precise, Warhammer Online, Age of Reckoning. So for those that don't know, Return of Reckoning is an emulator for Warhammer Online, and Warhammer Online was a old MMORPG that came out a number of years ago and unfortunately closed down. And I have to say, it is one of my favourite MMOs of all time, alongside the likes of Star Wars Galaxies. And I love this game for a couple of reasons. Firstly, it is what introduced me into the world of Warhammer. So I always, if you live in the UK, chances are you've seen a Games Workshop kicking around, and you've probably seen the little model shops and stuff where you can go in and look at all the tabletop stuff if you live in the US as well. But over here, the majority of them are just straight up called Games Workshop, so they kind of stand out. So I've seen them before, but I never really looked into it. And then it wasn't until I started college and I got chatting to someone who I was sat next to, and he was a gamer, and he was telling me about this game coming out, and I was like, oh, I've never heard of that. And as he was explaining it to me, it sounded, more and more awesome by the minute, so I ended up going and looking at it, and then next thing I know, I've got the game, and I played it like hardcore for a good amount of time, probably the longest stint I've done in an MMO, flat out, without taking breaks. But anyway, enough of the history lesson. This was a very, very cool game, and this series, because there's going to be quite a few things to talk about concerning this game, I'm going to try and break it up, and in this particular video we're going to look at the character creator. Now this is an old game and the graphics aren't exactly up to today's standards, but hey ho. And yeah, we're going to take a look at the character creator. Now the reason why I really wanted to cover this game is because if you've been following my Warsword Conquest series, the mod for Mount and Blade Warband, you'd have seen a lot of things that look very familiar. So let me go ahead and start going through the different classes and factions and all that good stuff. So there are two factions in this game, Order and Destruction. So the way they did this was by making an alliance of 3 different factions on either side to basically come together and battle the opposition. So on the Order side, you have, in fact, let me just go ahead and hit create here, the Realm of Order. They have Dwarves, the Empire, and the High Elves. And on the Realm of Destruction, we have Dark Elves, Chaos, and Greenskins. So those are your factions. Now let's start by taking a look at the Dwarves. Now there are female Dwarves, and you notice when I switch between them, one of them vanishes. So there are classes that are gender locked on both sides, but I'll talk about those more in a moment. First of all, let's have a look. We have the Ironbreaker. Now I'm going to keep stopping and backtracking a little, because each of these classes do have unique customizations depending on what class you're looking at. Most notably, the Slayer will have access to different hairstyles and tattoos and stuff that some of these others won't. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind if you decide to check this out. Oh, and before we go any further, I should point out, you can go and play this game right now for free by visiting returnofreckoning.com. The link is in the description of this video. And I guess depending on the interest, if many people want to play this, I may set up a guild, or if any active guilds are out there are recruiting, well, hopefully I can bring some more people to the game and you can pick them up. Anyway, so let's take a look at the Ironbreaker, who is basically a tank Now the classes are kind of mirrored on both sides. Some have different perks and quirks, but you know, tanks are pretty well the same throughout. Now, I never actually played many of the Dwarf classes. The only one I really ever tried was the Engineer, because it was kind of awesome. I'll talk about that in a moment. But let me just go on here and show you the general customization options. You have a few different faces, and a whole bunch of different hairstyles. Basically just want you guys to get a feel for this. That's quite a few. And of course, some of the most awesome beards out there. Big bushy ones, small ones. For some reason I feel like there was a clean shaven one, but I may be thinking of World of Warcraft. And some piercings if you want facial detail. Oh, and you can change the hair colour, which is all named after the Warhammer colour system for painting the models. You can change the eye colour. You've got skin colour and the metal colour, depending on what you've got. If you've got earrings, if you've got, you know, metal in your beard, that type of thing. And if I show you the female, so there's a few different faces. Now I'm not going to go through every single option. I just want to go through like the basics here and then show you whatever the things that are different. But as you can see there. Then we've got jewellery, hair colour, eye colour, skin colour, and metal colour. So the Ironbreaker is essentially the tank. Then you've got the Rune Priest, that is a healer. Now I've never messed with this, so one thing I need to point out is that most healing classes have different mechanics for healing. I can't actually explain what the rune crafting system is because I've never used it. But if I'm not mistaken, I think it might be like the Goblin Healer, where the more they heal, they then can switch over and do some damage, and then once they've done some damage, they can switch over and do some healing. I'm not really sure. But anyway. We have the Engineer, who is very cool, runs around with like a rifle and a little and melee weapons, but they can set down like turrets and all sorts, which are pretty fun. And last but not least, we have the Slayer. Now I want to quickly show you the Slayer because he was one of the later classes that were added. So when the game came out, not all classes were in. If you ever read up on the history of this game, a lot of stuff happened. A lot of things were brought in and the game was kind of rushed before release. So a lot of content was skipped. So we didn't get the Slayers at the start, but we did get them eventually. So here we go, here are the tattoos. A whole bunch of them. And Slayers are basically DPS, and they grow bigger as well as you fight, as you get like more anger and so on. It's something I'll be able to show you when I actually start playing, but for now I just wanted to skip through and give you guys a quick look. Slayers get some pretty badass hairstyles as well, if you're into mohawks. And the beards are pretty well standard, nothing different there. Eye colours, although if you set your character to blind and they're wearing an eye patch, you can't really change the eye colour. Skin colour and tattoo colour, so you can change the colour of the tattoos. So that's the dwarves. Now I'm going to skip through here a little bit quicker now, because there's a lot of things to cover. And I want to point out that one of the other reasons I love this game is because, as you can see here, it had some of the best looking armour sets out of any MMO I played. Granted, I mean, graphically, it's not that impressive, but like, for the time it was bloody cool when like the best, you know, the best game to compare it to was World of Warcraft, and all they could ever offer was the big, you know, shoulder pieces, and that was it. So I do love the armor sets in this game. So we'll start with the Knight of the Blazing Sun, who is basically just another kind of tank, and you can see some of the armor sets and what they look like later on. we've got the Bright Wizard. Now, the Bright Wizard is pretty cool because, in fact, I will also go in and show you the customization. And you can be female. So with the Bright Wizard, you cast like, you're a mage and you cast like a whole bunch of fire spells. But, and I always like this mechanic, the more you did it, you built up this like meter. And the higher the meter got, the higher the chance of it backfiring, but you also did more damage or more criticals. I forget what it was exactly. And what that meant was if you were maxed out and you had a healer with you, you could be damaging yourself like mad as you cast these spells and getting healing from a healer at the same time, and you would just wreak havoc on the enemy. These guys used to be so overpowered back in the day, but I'm pretty sure that was patched and it was all balanced, but still, they are a lot of fun to play, especially if you've got your own little pocket healer. So I'm just skipping through these just so you can see a quick idea what they look like. And you can see the female equivalent here of all the classes. Warrior Priest, again, probably one of the first times I saw a healer class and I thought, wow, I actually would play that because it looks badass. So the Warrior Priests, again, look very similar from the... I'm never sure if Warsword Conquest actually took some of these models from this particular thing or if they based it on it, I don't know. But they all look very similar. So, yeah, these guys get some cool customization. Eye patches, scars, you look pretty messed up. A whole variety of beards and moustaches. Circlets, some tattoos as well. No hair for these guys though. And last but not least, my favourite, the Witch Hunter. Oops. So there's no point me really going through these, as these customization options are pretty well the same, although this guy gets a few different hair options. So yeah, they're basically in a sort of an assassin DPS, so to speak. They'll go around, act more like a rogue, they'll backstab and so on. Oh, and the Warrior Priest, now I do apologise if I'm getting mixed up here or if I seem to be rambling. There's so much to cover and I'm trying to explain as much as I can from memory. But Warrior Priests, they're healers and they're close combat, so the more they fight, they can build up Righteous Fury and then they can use that Righteous Fury to heal people. So the more you fight, the more you can heal basically. Which is pretty cool. Now let's move on to the High Elves. Again, you're going to see stuff that looks familiar if you watch my Warsword Conquest series. So here we've got the female equivalent for all of them. And switch it over, we've got the White Lions. So the White Lions in this game, in fact these all look pretty similar appearance wise, so I'm just going to quickly skip through some of these options for you guys to have a quick look. And there's some jewellery as well, mostly ear piercings and stuff, and the hairstyles. A lot of long hairs. So the way the White Lions work, they are basically a melee, just a melee class, but the difference is they have a pet, which is a White Lion, believe it or not, and it will run around and it will attack the people you attack, and that's it really. It's pretty dang cool. You can't ride the mount unfortunately, but you can attack with it. Now we've got the Sword Masters. Basically a tank. Now these guys can use like a big shield, a tower shield and a one-handed sword, but they can also tank with a two-handed sword or do some really good damage with a two-handed sword. Very cool. Again, I love this game because it made the classes not look so boring. And I keep making this comparison to WoW because when I played WoW, there was stuff that just didn't appeal to me. But when I came to Warhammer Online, it was like, wow, that looks very cool. You know, that healer class doesn't look as boring as they normally do, and so on and so forth. Speaking of healer class, we have the Archmage, who is the healer, but can also do some magic. Again, I haven't actually played this much, so I don't know what the Archmage can do in terms of healing and how it actually works mechanically. But yeah, And last but not least, we've got the Shadow Warrior, who you probably have seen in Warsword Conquest yet again. And these are basically a ranged DPS class. Now let me back up and take a look at Realm of Destruction, starting with the Greenskins. So the Greenskins are basically a combination of the Orcs and Goblins. So first of all, we've got the Squig Herder. Squig Herder is a ranged DPS, and he will have a little squig, similar to the White Lion, except he is ranged. And there we go. Let me go through these quickly to show you all the different customization options. And yeah, he's like a little ranged DPS. He does get a pretty cool skill where if he needs to like sprint away, he can get his squig to eat him and then like carry him away, which is kind of neat. Now we've got the Shaman. So the Shaman was the one that the more damage you do, the more you can heal as well. Again, I forget how it works exactly, and please note there's no female version of these. So just a heads up there. Moving on to the Chopper, which is pretty well identical to the Slayer class. Its special mechanic is Berserk, so the more damage they do, the more damage they take. Basically, the more damage they do and take increases their Berserk skill, and the more that builds up, they eventually just become more vulnerable, although they do more damage, so it's a trade-off. But this is the Orc, and the Orcs are pretty cool. Bunch of different faces here, and the Chopper gets tattoos, as you can see. You can change their teeth, you can add some scars, teeth colours, change the eye colour, skin colour, tattoo colour. And last but not least, we've got Black Orc, which is basically a massive tank, and if I recall was one of the best tanks. But basically this guy just goes in, and as you can see there, he looks literally like a tank, just plates of iron and steel or whatever they wear. Crazy stuff. Okay, moving on to Chaos. This is where I spent most of my time. First of all, we've got the Zealot. The Zealot is the healer for Chaos. And this does have... Okay, so for Chaos, you only have access to female Zealots and Magus. Magnus, even. Jesus. And basically, one is a healer, the other is a ranged DPS. But let me just quickly go through some of the options here so you can get a quick look at what they look like. Various tattoos, hairstyles, they look a bit, you know, a bit sickly, a bit ill looking. Okay. And I'll show you that as well for the this class. More scars, hairstyles. The cool thing about the Magnus class, or Magus class, how you pronounce it, is that they float on a disc. They never set foot on the floor. Includes their mount. They also just have a faster disc that makes them move around, which is kind of cool looking. If I switch him back to the male gender, you can see what they look like, and they get all sorts of facial stuff like scars and like brands and whatnot, and just funky stuff. So there is a lot of cool looking things here. Again, apologies if I'm rambling a bit, I'm just trying to cover as much of this as I can. So the Zealots, basically, I think it heals the same as the Goblins. Basically, the more you do, the more damage you do, the more healing you can do, but I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Let me quickly show you. They have pretty well the same faces, but different tattoos. As you can see here, some of the hairstyles are bugged. Yeah, that's weird looking. Anyway. Chosen, one of my favourite classes, is basically the tank and the equivalent of the Knight of the Blazing Sun, or the Iron Break. No, Knight of the Blazing Sun, I believe. And once he is fully equipped out, as you can see in the back, he looks amazing. As I said, this game has some of the best looking armor for these classes. I'm not joking about that. Once you get into the higher tiers, even some of the lower tiers look absolutely amazing. And definitely looks very, very cool. Now, the Marauder is melee DPS, and as you can see there, he just mutated his arm. So this melee DPS class has the opportunity to change his arm depending on what type of damage you want to do, and there's a whole bunch of mutations, so your arm becomes a weapon, which is pretty damn cool. They also get a few different tattoos similar to the Zealots, and again you can change the tattoo colour, but most of the facial and beard stuff is the same. But I will show you more of the Marauder later on, as that will probably be the character I'll be playing throughout this. But again, it had some of the coolest looking class armors I've seen. Last but not least, again, is the Dark Elves. So Dark Elves, they get the other gender locked character, which is the Witch Elf, so you can only be a female Witch Elf. So we'll take a look at her customization. These are the faces. There are a few different tattoos as well. You've got your scars, a bunch of different hairstyles, and the Witch Elf is basically a proper assassin. You can stealth it up and you can like backstab people and do some damage and so on. So yeah, that is the Witch Elf. Now we have the Blackguard, which is just a tank. Again, another very cool class to play. Let me just show you some of the customization options. Whole variety of facial stuff, jewelry, scars, hair, different hair colours. Yeah. Then we have the Sorcerer, which is basically just a mage, a ranged DPS. Although I think the female or the Sorceress actually gets better looking class armor compared to the male equivalent, but that's just me. Not really much to say about this, it's just the standard mage. Very cool, very similar to the Bright Wizard. More damage they do, they'll increase the meter, increases their crit chance, their crit damage, overall damage, but they also become more vulnerable and it can backfire and so on. Last but not least, the Disciple of Cain. Now this is a healer that I did actually play and can talk about. So basically the more damage you do, you increase your bar, which allows you to heal people. And I've said this a lot, but they are all slightly different and don't work exactly the same. But the Disciple of Cain had some pretty kick-ass armor sets. Also could dual weld or weld a one-handed sword and a chalice at the other, and could heal and damage at the same time. It was pretty sweet. And they do actually get a tattoo, so let's go through these. Mostly on the face, not very big, but you can see them there, and you can change the colours. So yes, that was a look at all the different classes for Warhammer Online. Return of Reckoning. And again, I do apologise if I rambled. I just wanted you guys to have a quick look at these races and classes and have a look at what you can make. And as I said, you can get this game for free at returnofreckoning.com. Check the link in the description of this video. Anyway, that's all for now. Be sure to join me again next time for some more Return of Reckoning.